We're through the first round of the 2024 Wimbledon Championships, and with only one round completed, we have so many headlines, which means we're in store for some more fun here in London. What's up, everybody? It's John Eric Pauli here to continue my coverage of this year's Wimbledon Championships. It's already off to a great start here with so many fun headlines out there. In today's video, we're recapping what we already saw here through the opening round, and with this many headlines here in store, it only means that there's a lot more great tennis here ahead of us at Wimbledon. Let's get started by talking about the very first and what I thought was one of the biggest headlines so far, and that was Aryna Sabalenka having to pull out of this year's tournament with an injury to a muscle in her shoulder. And for Sabalenka, right, I did a preview and prediction video. I had Sabalenka as the favorite to win this year's Wimbledon. I predicted her to win it, and of course, about 2 hours after I posted that video, that's when the news comes out where she had her press conference saying she's not 100%. Now, next thing you know, right before the opening round, she pulls out. Now, very upsetting for Sabalenka, too, because not only is she one of the favorite players on tour, not only is she one of the best players on tour as well, but she was set up so well here at Wimbledon this year. She had a great draw. She has the game to do great things here on the grass surface. Very upsetting for Sabalenka to have to pull out of this year's tournament. But the big thing here is, let's hope that Sabalenka has a speedy recovery. She's a great player. She's so fun to watch, and any tournament is better when Sabalenka's a part of it. So we're wishing her a very speedy recovery. Let's continue on here with a few other headlines from the opening round. Let's talk about Novak Djokovic. Usually it's always like, oh yeah, Novak's going to do Novak things. He's going to run right through this tournament. He's won it 7 times. Well, you guys know, right? I just did a video on this too. Novak's not having a good 2024 by any stretch of the imagination, and he's coming into this year's Wimbledon with a knee injury. He did wear a sleeve over that knee, but looked like Novak of old all of a sudden here. That was a very impressive opening round win, but like I said in yesterday's video, it's a wild card that he's playing here in the opening round. We expect Novak to dominate the way that he did in that matchup. Let's see if he could carry some momentum here, and let's see how he performs as this tournament goes along, because he has that knee injury and everything. A lot of tennis left here for Novak Djokovic in this tournament. Now let's move on to somebody that won a championship here at Wimbledon, but it ain't gonna win it this year. Marketa Vondrousova, last year's champion, looked great last year winning it. A lot of people, myself included, had her as one of the favorites to win this year's Wimbledon. She gets upset, she loses in round 1, and she's in a category with Steffi Graf, which typically is always a good thing. Not a good one here. She becomes the first defending champ to lose in the opening round of Wimbledon since Graf did it in 1994. Now let's move on to the world number 1 on the women's side, Iga Swiatek. Swiatek, of course, people have a lot of high hopes for in any tournament. She's such a great player, but as you know, grass hasn't been friendly to her, and she didn't play in any tournaments in the lead up to Wimbledon, but she was practicing on the grass court. She spent a lot of time doing that, letting that body heal up and just getting practice rounds in. Nobody knew what it was going to look like in her opening round, but she made it look easy by beating Sofia Kenin in straight sets. Kenin, of course, is a former major winner herself, and Iga looked very good, and the serve looked very good early here. It was a lot flatter, quicker. We'll see if that serves improves there. I think Iga's definitely a very live dog here in this year's tournament. And I just said dog there. I don't know if that's very correct wording by me either. I don't think Iga's an underdog by any stretch of the imagination. She is the world number 1. She's always tough to beat, no matter what surface it's on, and she looks very good here through the first round. But just like with Novak Djokovic, a lot of tennis left here. There's a lot of big matchups out there. Iga didn't have a good draw for this tournament, so we'll see how it all plays out for Iga Swiatek. Another big headline. This is actually kind of previewing a little bit into round 2, if you will, here. Jannik Sinner, Matteo Berrettini, a nice Italian matchup there in round 2. Sinner, one of the favorites to win this year's Wimbledon. I actually predicted him to win this year's championship. He's going against Matteo Berrettini, who competed for a Wimbledon final a few years ago. Berrettini's been banged up. He's been dealing with injuries, but still, when he's on top of his game, he's tough to beat on that grass surface. That's a huge round 2 matchup there. Can't wait to see how that one is going to play itself out. I want to talk about another guy who has a lot of high hopes coming into Wimbledon this year, Alexander Zverev. Zverev actually gave a pretty good quote here. He said He's finally entering Wimbledon, not to just compete in it, but to try and win it. He is very confident, and as he should be. He is playing so well here in 2024. He made the semifinals in the Australian Open. He had a very good clay court season, as you would expect out of him. He competed for a French Open final, losing 5 sets to Carlos Alcaraz. He has all the confidence in the world, and he's in a bracket that's actually wide open. It is on that same side as Novak Djokovic, but his little corner to make a run towards the semifinals, it's going to be him, Stefano Tsitsipas, and Taylor Fritz all battling out. You got to like Zverev's chances there as well. Speaking of big opportunities, Coco Gauff. She gets out of round 1. How about that? Last year, losing very early, losing in that opening round. And a lot of people, and I'm also included in this category, maybe didn't have the highest of hopes for Coco Gauff in this year's tournament, even though she's very good, even though she's very consistent. But just have those questions with her forehand a little bit there. Also, the fact that she lost early last year raises some questions, but she looked very good in her opening round matchup. And not to mention now with Sabalenka out, it's a wide open half of the bracket for anybody to come out of, and Gauff is the highest seed over on that half of the bracket. Major opportunity here for Coco Gauff. I have 2 other headlines here to address with the opening round as we recap it here. Want to talk next about Andrey Rublev. Rublev, of course, one of the top players in the world. We just saw him win an ATP 1000 event on clay. He's out already, losing in round 1, getting upset early and having a little temper tantrum on the court. Seems like this has been happening a little bit too much now ever since Rublev won that tournament. A little disappointed to see. Maybe Rublev might want to take just a little bit of time off, get himself together, get himself composed. That was a little bad to see there from Rublev, who has all the talent in the world. And finally, one last headline. How could I make a video about Wimbledon and not talk about Carlos Alcaraz, the defending champion on the men's side of things? A guy who's being followed around by cameras constantly this year. He's going to be part of a Netflix series. How is he going to handle all that pressure coming off a French Open championship, coming into a Wimbledon championship that he's the defending champ at, having all these cameras around? Answer's pretty good so far. He looked great in his opening round, dominating, rolling right through in straight sets as expected. Alcaraz, all the talent in the world. He definitely is going to be one of the players here. A lot of people think he's going to win Wimbledon again this year. Wouldn't be surprised at all if he does. And so far, if you're hoping that he's going to win it this year, you're going to be very happy at the way he looks early on in this year's tournament. So there you go, guys. That was pretty much round 1 in a nutshell. It was a very fun start to this year's Wimbledon. Like you guys saw there, a lot of headlines just from round 1. It means we're in store for a fantastic tournament, as we should be, because Wimbledon, one of the great events in not only tennis, but in all of sports. It's going to be such a fun tournament as it continues to roll on. Can't wait to see how it's all going to play itself out here in London.